there's a moment that clicked that was where we're headed is my generation. It's the generation that comes after me, right? And we're building a future for them, and it's not going to be built on what is being handed to us. And if you can appreciate that you're not living in today, you're living in 20 years from now, and what's that world look like?
Mhm.
You know, it increased my rate of understanding. So you look at Bitcoin and you go, there's 53 million millionaires. There's, or something of that sort. There's 21 million Bitcoin. Not every millionaire is going to get half of a Bitcoin. Is that scarce, right? That feels scarce to me. And that costs $50,000 to get your share of what a current millionaire in fiat money could afford, could afford one day. It's a lesson in scarcity. If you want to reach, the 7.5 billion people that don't own Bitcoin, you got to go to places where they're at. And so collectibles to me is the opportunity to breach that.
On your LinkedIn, on the banner, it says, live bold, adopt Bitcoin, begin today, we're early. What does that phrase mean to you, and why do you believe we're still early?
Yeah. So this came from I updated this literally this morning, and it's because of 2 days ago I presented. I'm a UCLA MBA student. I'm involved in the Entrepreneur Association. There, it's the big student community for entrepreneurs, which funnels up to the Price Center for Entrepreneurship. And we had a board meeting. I got invited due to my role, and I got up in front of a 30-person board of entrepreneurs, and when I was supposed to update them on club events, I did a 5-minute pitch on Bitcoin. And the reason I did that was because they had spent about 45 minutes talking about how the school needs to get, quote, sneakily creative in finding funds, over the next however long, right? And
Mm.
the feedback was the most well-received, pitch that I had given in Bitcoin at UCLA. I've been here 18 months. Every single board member wanted to reach out and learn more. And it was the president of the board that
Wow.
got up in front of the room and said, that was bold. And he just takes a moment and says, I appreciate it's refreshing to experience somebody that is so, excited and passionate and is willing to communicate their ideas. And so this morning I was like, you got to live bold, right? And with Bitcoin, for what it means to me, this is an opportunity to be bold, be proactive, see opportunity and take, and act. And we are early. We're at 0.085 million today, we're 95% Bitcoin mined, but 500 million users or holders maybe, and there's billions more to come. So I feel we're quite early.
Yeah, I mean, that just propped up an idea Jason and I were talking about earlier about breaking the rules and authenticity and the importance of that. And I think that's where a lot of the Bitcoin space really lends itself to that. So my question when going in front of a board like that, did you feel like you were breaking the rules, but also like how has the entrepreneur community and the academic community at UCLA been accepting and curious about Bitcoin and have you seen that shift in your 18 months there as the price of Bitcoin has appreciated?
Yeah. To start with the second question is Bitcoin at UCLA. I came to UCLA because I wanted to be surrounded by a community of learners, people that were looking to grow. And UCLA is world-class institution, #1 public university. There's 40,000 faculty and 45,000 students. I came to learn about Bitcoin. And what I found was I was the teacher. I am the teacher. And when you stick out, when you go into the MBA program, a lot of your peers and the faculty are focused on career risk averse, developing, driving impact, but it's not about entrepreneurship all the time. It's certainly not always about digital assets, right? And the new technology. I mean, AI, of course, is a common topic. But when I came to Anderson, I knew that I was a Bitcoiner. I knew that I wanted to drive Bitcoin into the entrepreneurial community. That's why I started Bitcoin Bruins, founded Bitcoin Bruins within the Entrepreneur Association, so that it can live within the entrepreneurs both the faculty and the students that engage there. But what I've experienced has been students are interested, they want to learn, right? Many more students actually approach it with an open mind than I would say faculty and just general community. And that's nothing against, faculty. The academic staff at UCLA is incredible. And it's tough to approach an asset where I don't talk about crypto. I talk about Bitcoin. And when I say I want to do Bitcoin research, I don't want to do crypto research. I don't want to study ICOs. I want to target one thing. And for some people, it's difficult to appreciate that somebody has such focus that there's only one thing that they want to, pay attention to. I'll tell a story where in my financial statements analysis class, I got up and I presented. I was the only student to present their actual homework. But it was doing financial statement analysis on a public company, and I picked MicroStrategy, now strategy. And I got up there and 15 minutes of presenting, and a lot of students are very engaged. The professor and I have a great relationship. This was in the fall, so he would always start the class with asking how the markets are doing. And first day of class was like, well, Bitcoin's doing well. And then by the end of class, it touched 100K. But there was a student in the middle of my presentation that yelled out, can we talk about a real business? And I've never experienced that before, right?
Wow.
And that's not, nothing against the student, that it's to receive that as you're presenting, you're sharing success. I came to Anderson, their pillars are drive change, think fearlessly, and share success. If you don't think Bitcoin embodies that entirely, right? It is so core to that. I came specifically for the share success. I wanted to share it with others, with peers. I wanted to create dialogue in the classroom. So, long answer to say, students want to learn. I think faculty today, after my Price Center experience with the board, a lot of the entrepreneurial faculty want to learn. And I'm giving them an opportunity to do so later this year, which I can touch on in a bit.
Had many of the students heard of MicroStrategy? Were they familiar with the business?
No. Most everyone had also not heard of Michael Saylor.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I wanted to join a club my first year, and I went to the club kickoff, and the president asked me what my background was, and I said Bitcoin, and he goes, crypto. I said Bitcoin, and he goes, oh, like crypto. And I was like, no, I don't think you understand. Like, I'm interested in Bitcoin. He goes, well, I'm a computer scientist. Bitcoin is crypto. Like, it's the same thing. And I was like, I don't think I want to join your club. I was like, and
Can you,
go ahead.
Kyle, can you touch just briefly for our listeners the differences in your mind between Bitcoin and crypto?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. But I'm a purist, right? I'm a collector at the end of the day. I love communities. I love people and collectibles, but I love those things in their purest state, right? And when I think about money, when I think about technology, you look at Bitcoin and then you look at digital assets at large, right? And what's the most pure, right? From an external, just objective, right? Like, we're going to approach this and say, this was almost divine, right? It was almost so beautiful, it was just dropped into our laps. And from that standpoint, whether it's the Satoshi remaining anonymous, whether it's there's no VCs involved and there's no marketing team to, for me, it's the peer-to-peer aspect, the freedom money. There's such purity in its design and the way that the community engages with one another, that when I look at crypto and I look at, and this is just talking my personal experience in the academic world right now, you look at how other programs have their crypto or digital asset initiatives, their conferences, and you wonder why. And it's like, well, people put money, into that. They want to get students thinking about crypto because, there's companies in crypto that need their attention. And for me, it's painful to see people get swayed because of just this marketing play. But maybe that's there's always more you could talk about the differences between Bitcoin and crypto, but
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about the that difference, right, of Bitcoin and crypto, I'm curious if we want to like rewind and, go back to when you first discovered uh Bitcoin, crypto, and all this stuff. And
mm,
was there like an aha moment for you? Was there an instant where you were like, oh, this is a perfect money, or this is like fundamentally different than anything I had seen before?
yeah. That's so funny. Thinking about, and everybody's got their different experience, understand their learning journey in Bitcoin. I was introduced in 2017 October. Some friends at my undergrad university getting involved in helping parents of students buy Bitcoin, and many of those original founders of that team had been my best friends. And so they onboarded me to Coinbase and they told me HODL, right? They were like Bitcoin and HODL, right? And I'm like, at the time, well, Litecoin's
Good
at,
friends.
yeah, I was like, yeah, good friends, very good friends. They're still best friends, still in the industry
Yeah.
today, contributing and driving impact. You know, wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. So for me, I was a mechanical engineer. I love, understanding things at its root. And even then, I didn't read the white paper right away. You know, I didn't look and understand that it was freedom money until really 2020. And the kick in the butt was one of those original friends. COVID happened and he goes all in. And you're like,
Hmm.
I mean, I'm in, but I'm not all in. That's crazy. And then if somebody goes all in, you're like, you got to know something. You have to, you back the truck up. Like, you know something that I need to understand. And so it was 2020 was really my learning journey of going through and appreciating, what the problems with money is. That was Clubhouse days. That was,
Mhm.
really just trying to learn from the community, read Sovereign Individual, the Bitcoin Standard, of course. But uh,
Mhm.
it took a long time, right? And it didn't happen overnight, but eventually you can appreciate that our society is broken. What's at the root of society is money. Is
Mhm.
money good? Are the people that print that
Mhm.
manufacture whatever you want, design the money, is it perfect? Not really. Is it backed by technology and math and science that as an engineer I appreciate that? No. And so um there's a moment that clicked that was where we're headed is my generation. It's the generation that comes after me, right? And we're building a future for them, and it's not going to be built on what is being handed to us, right? And if you can appreciate that you're not living in today, you're living in 20 years from now, and what's that world look like?
Mhm.
You know, it increased my rate of understanding.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so interesting about asking that question of what got you into Bitcoin, what was your aha moment or whatever it may be, because everyone has a different start at the rabbit hole. Everybody looks at that door and arrives there from a different journey, whether it's, your background in mechanical engineering, your background with collectibles. But then once you kind of take a step in and do some research, you start to see these common themes show up and up again, uh, to the point where now you're getting involved in communities and you're building in the space and you're really progressing forward, the promise of what sound money can provide. So that always interests me of whether no matter what your background is, you you generally fall in at least looking at the same picture.
Yeah. And I want to add, and this is something that I don't think enough people appreciate, where for me, Bitcoin is a blank canvas, right? Bitcoin entrepreneurship, I don't see anybody having one, right? And I see you're able to take any existing fiat business, meaning any business that currently exists today, and tweak it literally just by putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet. But, that changes the brand and the signal. But, you can create a whole new world, whatever interests you. There's an opportunity in Bitcoin for you to go and do that. And I say this because I've experienced at, UCLA and just academia in general, or just communities in general, saying there's not much to do in Bitcoin, right? And I don't like that statement because I'll tell you, I've devoted my career to it. I did it 3 years ago, and I participate in Bitcoin every single day. I'm doing something in Bitcoin every single day. And so for somebody to tell me and their peers and their students that go to crypto because there's more to do, right? There's more in gaming, there's more in entertainment, there's just more to do. And that's not a good enough, answer. That's not a fair answer either, or pitch. But anyways,
One thing that you said, Kyle, that I thought was really beautiful and profound was that you're not building for yourself and your generation, you're building for the next. And that, I think, is it really hits me at like my aha moment when I realized I've spent the last 15 years supporting small and medium-sized businesses with accepting money, right? Running a payment processing company. And then it dawning on me that like my kids are going to be entering in this world running on legacy fiat when I could be putting my time and resources and energy into clean, hard, sound money that's better for the business, better for literally everyone. Um, and Yeah, I just thought that was really beautiful thinking about it that way. Not even for, and I think that's again like one of the differences between like kind of crypto and Bitcoin. It's like such a long-term time horizon and thinking more about how does this fit in with the larger picture rather than like how much money is my VC giving me so I can pitch this crypto venture, right?
yeah.
Um,
And I can elaborate on that. I mean,
yeah.
and there's two things that you made me think of, which is one, my origin story is, I grew up, I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher, right? I loved
Mm,
people, I loved youth. And at that point, maybe it was high school where it was like I wanted to scale my impact, right? And in a classroom, I can touch 30 kids, and maybe on the back end of my career, I get back and find the classroom. But at this point, it was how can I touch as many people as possible in a way that positively affects, their lives, right? And I grew up in it was a beautiful childhood. It was, very full of love, and it also I experienced the world. I've traveled and I got outside of my local community. And in doing that, there was a desire to help others no matter where they are, right? And no matter what stage of life they're in, whatever their background, whatever part of their journey they're in, and especially those who are not in a position to do that for themselves, right? And
mm,
that's when I think of youth, right? When I think of that next
mm,
generation, there's people who are not in control of this future that we're building. And you can play a direct role in that. And so for me, Bitcoin was the scale, the impact, right? You're attacking the root problem, you're attacking a
mm,
global problem,
mm,
um, and you're able to fix a lot of societal problems as a result. And you're
mm.
building something that with low time preference, I'm not worried about my NFT market going up, being built tomorrow and the fun and entertainment that the next 5 to 10 years may provide. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
That provides value. But is it providing value 100 years from now, that we've, built a society that sustains a
Yeah.
beautiful way of life, right?
Mm,
So it is I go to, there's the number go up side. Everybody's in Bitcoin
mm.
for a different reason, I think. There's
Yeah.
number go up and there's the impact. And
Yeah.
I feel like I've won just by being here and having this conviction. I'm here to share that win, that success with other people, and especially on that, how can we help others, right?
I'm on the same journey, man. I've been fortunate enough to get to a place where I don't need to just work just to feed my family and put food on the table. And the impact piece is now it's the most important thing. And I'm excited to dig in a little deeper and hear more about what you're building because it really is wild how much money and economics impact so many things. And there's that common phrase, fix the money, fix the world. Um, Look at that.
Right there.
Yeah, that's awesome. One other thing you mentioned, Kyle, is that you view Bitcoin as a blank canvas
Mhm.
and how how much opportunity there is within every business to utilize Bitcoin. What's the biggest misconception businesses have about Bitcoin, you think?
I say, and this is something I think even Bitcoiners have a misconception about. Um, and I know the name of the show, Medium of Exchange, right? We're going to get into that for sure, but is people today feel like you have to use it, right? You have to medium of exchange it, right? You have to be able to take payment.
Mm-hmm.
And there's such a friction with that, right? I see we're still in Web 2. You can talk Web 3, you could say Web 2.5. 99% of the world, their brains are in Web 2, right? They want to live in a Web 2 world still. And if you want to onboard businesses, if you want to onboard people, you have to approach it as, the least, frictionless, the most frictionless way possible, which in my opinion is not tackling, let's give you a POS system that allows you to take Lightning so you can, for the 1% of people in your community, take payments from them in Bitcoin. It's, how can your business benefit if your bottom line is, as a business, besides impact, there's that aspect, but every business, needs revenue, needs cash flow, and needs a balance sheet, a healthy balance sheet, right? I prefer that businesses understand how Bitcoin can support, the sustainability of their runway, their operations, how they can leverage it to retain assets on their balance sheet and not, constantly be spending them. So I would just say the misconception is that you have to use it, as a medium
Mm.
of exchange
Mm.
in order
Yeah,
to
yeah.
onboarded to this community.
So you kind of start with the store of value use case and retain your hard work so that
Absolutely.
your savings are not being diluted, and then you can kind of get to that point where you're opening up your revenue cycle for other new forms of money like Bitcoin.
Yeah, and on
Yeah.
the point of the white canvas and where you can take any business, right? Entrepreneurship through acquisition is a very common, or it's
Mm.
becoming more common in today's world. And for those that don't know, entrepreneurship through acquisition is you see an existing business, often it's an aging, founder, and they don't have, family to pass it on to, or they're past their prime and they're just done. They want to retire. And you come in and you buy it from them, right? And these are operating businesses. They don't have to be glamorous. It could be, laundry, services, it could be trash, right? But they're operating, they're profitable, they, generate revenue, and it's typically the best ones are contract based. So, you have expected income, right? And you can take in entrepreneurship with acquisition, take a cash cow and you change its future by putting starting to put Bitcoin on the balance sheet, right? You've changed the business at its core from a financial, standpoint, by doing one thing. You've changed no operations, but now you're, storing Bitcoin on your balance sheet, and you've separated yourself from 99% of, your industry, from your peers. And that to me is really powerful. It doesn't take a lot of work. It takes a little bit of creativity and an action.
Yeah, and Kyle, I think one of where my head goes to that, and it just all keeps building on itself from your background in a mechanical, being a mechanical engineer, the blank canvas piece of what Bitcoin is and what it can be. And one of the things that I think we're constantly looking for, whether it's making a business decision or a life decision, is like the data, right? And we want to make at least what feels like an informed decision. Um, and I think, a common parallel that people will try to equate it to is like sports and, analytics in sports. And how has baseball scouting gotten much more precise because we now have new metrics, right? We now have new ways to measure if a guy in AAA is hitting the ball hard enough where it's an expected hit in the majors. And the reason why I bring that up is because you recently wrote on your LinkedIn about a metric that's, I think, starting to get a little bit more traction in the industry, but is probably pretty unknown to most of the people listening to this is the idea of the Bitcoin hurdle rate, and what that might look like. So tying this all together of acquisition entrepreneurship, putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet, and then the idea of run rate, hurdle rate, whatever you want to call it. How do you look at financial analysis, whether it's MicroStrategy, MetaPlanet, or the next mom and pop business adopting Bitcoin, and adding those metrics for future financial, whether it's projections or performance or whatever it may be?
Yeah, it's an incredible topic that I actually just reached out to the director of research at UCLA within the Entrepreneurial Center I wanted to spend the last 3 months of my time at Anderson doing research on Bitcoin in entrepreneurship and startups and entrepreneurship through acquisition and on the investment side, because I don't understand well enough of how you can incorporate this and how you need to analyze, businesses that are adopting Bitcoin in some way, shape, or form, or being invested in with Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin hurdle rate, right, or Bitcoin as your hurdle rate, as an entrepreneur, right, with my startup, I could go out and I could mine fiat, right? And I could take somebody else's money and add and stack to my balance sheet, right? Bitcoin. I chose not to do that, right? So I'm taking my investment, my assets, I'm investing it into a business. And for example, I'll give you a concrete example. I bought inventory of trading cards, of Bitcoin trading cards. November 1st, Bitcoin was 70,000, right? And I bought, transparently, it was 0.3 Bitcoin, about $21,000 worth of product, right? 0.3 Bitcoin at $100,000 is 30K, right? So as an entrepreneur who cares about Bitcoin as my unit of account, I'm already down. I'm fighting against the machine. I'm fighting against the bull market, right? And there's something to be studied there of the timing of investment, right? Of leveraging loans, right? Delaying your payment, not having to spend the Bitcoin or the cash up front, and depending on that time of the market. But businesses should begin studying their cash flows. They should begin studying, how their assets on their balance sheet are performing when they, have an opportunity to dive into making more strategic capital allocation, to strengthen that balance sheet. It may not be, you can do it tomorrow because you have costs coming up, right? But if you have lines of credit that you can use to fund the business, and your profits can go into Bitcoin, I'm not sure, right? I have more research to do and more understanding to gain, but I think it's a really interesting field of research. I think businesses are going to really benefit from people that pull this data out, to your point, and share it.
Yeah, and that's the paradox of Bitcoin, right? Where you can use the dollars that you have today to buy more Bitcoin, or do you want to work on something that you believe is bigger or potentially can help grow that mission, to then hopefully not only accumulate more Bitcoin in the future, but then also spread that message, particularly for Bitcoin focused businesses. But yeah, there's just so much that goes into it. I'm definitely excited to see where that research continues to flow.
Well, I'll share it as I have an update. We'll see if I can make it happen.
We'll have to get you back on the pod.
Yeah, absolutely.
Medium of Exchange is sponsored by the Bitcoin Payments Advisor. If you own or run a business and you'd like to accept Bitcoin but don't know how, the Bitcoin Payments Advisor can help. From specific software recommendations and accounting implications to training employees and marketing so your customers know you accept this new form of payment, the Bitcoin Payments Advisor can help simplify your journey in accepting Bitcoin for your business. Check out bitcoinpaymentsadvisor.com and get 10% off if you pay in Bitcoin. Again, that's bitcoinpaymentsadvisor.com. Now let's get back to the show.
I think it was Preston Pish I heard say, if you're a business owner, the hurdle rate is conservatively 50%. Like if you're going to invest $100 into your business or Bitcoin, well, you know that this is going to be worth conservatively, on average, $150. if you put it in Bitcoin. And so you need to outperform that if you're going to invest it in your business, right? And then there's a lot of different goals. There's like, it's not just all about, making that immediate return in your business. There's longer term goals and stuff with your business, and what kind of impact can you make with your business as well, not just, hodling and extracting your dollars out of the fiat system. But I just thought it was like a pretty compelling framework and succinct.
Yeah. And Ego Death Capital, what they're doing out there is really great with Jeff Booth, Preston, and Lynn. And, something I find very interesting. But there's no, I would go back to one of my thoughts was running back to how you can, my mom always told me there's power in your voice, right? And there's power in your vote. And a lot of Bitcoiners have a viewpoint on voting and the way that we know of as a society, which is, placing your vote in government, right? That's what you think of when you hear the word vote. But my mom taught me at a young age, and this was when the BP oil crisis happened, where, a lot of oil entered the ocean, and she went, that's messed up. I'm not going to support BP. I'm voting with my money, right? And Bitcoin for me is an opportunity to vote in the best way I know how, which is taking my money and saying, I don't support you and what you're doing. And I'm going to go over here and build my world. And so there's a lot of power in that. And I think, people can feel empowered in that.
Kyle, I think a lot of our listeners may not even really know what the problems are with fiat. From just quickly from your perspective, I'd love to hear, with an oil spill, that's pretty obvious. There's a lot of industries that you may not want to support for obvious reasons. But what about fiat and like literally just money itself? Why would you not want to support the US dollar, let's say?
Yeah. It's funny. And again, I'll plug this. So I love Bitcoin trading cards. We'll get into this in a bit, but this series specifically is wars versus villains, right? And we didn't put villains in here by name. We put them in here by almost industrial complex, right? Military industrial complex, censorship, the WHO, the WEF. And
I got to get some of these cards.
oh, well, I'll make sure I'll ship some to you guys, and we'll make sure that
Awesome.
you guys can play and check them
Let's
out. For sure. But for me, fiat, a lot of people know 1971, Nixon goes off the gold standard. Fiat is something that, has a much longer life than Bitcoin does. And when you look at human behavior, right, you have to study incentive structures, you have to study, choice architecture and how people make decisions. And you have to appreciate that when a lot of people find money as, a driving force in their life, and they're able to be convinced by, a dollar, an extra dollar. And so when you look at the way, for me, that actually tying back to our earlier question of what was that moment that I really, felt something, was when I appreciated the separation of church and state. And I went, somebody went separating money and state, right? And there's no real reason the US government deserves the right to control the money, right? And there's no real belief on my end that they're looking out for all of our best interests. And not only are they looking out for it, they know how to do it, right? You look at the Federal Reserve and you go, are they guessing? Like, are they just 25% base cut? Like, I don't know, and so fiat money at large, its core problem, there's no consequences to spending it, right? There's no proof of work behind creating it. And therefore, if I can press a button and create trillions more of it to fund whatever, current government believes is worthy of that spend, then we can do that. And there's the only people that face consequences is society, is at large, right? Your savings, which, right, there's a numerator and a denominator. You own $100. There's $1,000 out there. Well, when that $1,000 becomes 10,000, becomes 100,000, becomes a million, and you go, well, now I have $1,000 up here instead of 100. Well, this outpaced your, growth by quite a bit, right? And you feel smart because your wealth, grew nominally, but in real
Hmm.
terms, you don't see what's happening. And you don't appreciate that the world has just taken your savings and went, you know, all that hard work you did to save, to, earn all the value you created for the world, well, it's gone. And if you want to pass that on to your next generation, if you want to spend that in certain ways, we took that from you. And there's no problem for me as the printer of that money. I sleep sound at night. Um,
It's
that's what
kind of a stealth theft as well, right? Because you go, oh wow, my home value just doubled. Like, look at me go. Like my net worth just doubled in terms of my what's in my home.
and that's the collectibles angle that I have, the perspective, right? You look at real estate and collectibles at large, right? Real estate, fashion, you've got cars, and I'll touch on cars, or trading cards even. I love the trading card
Hmm.
now. So trading cards as an industry, there used to be a scarcity about them. There's what's known as the junk wax era, which was 80s baseball. They printed out, just so many trading cards you can't even fathom, right? And where we've gotten today is a fiat mindset of printing a bunch of trading cards, right? There are literally billions of packs of, Pokemon cards, and there's no scarcity at all, right? But what drove trading card values to be hundreds of thousands and then to millions, right? And it was COVID and the liquidity injection. And people went, I have cash now and I'm going to spend it on things that are fun. And so those are collectibles. The car market took off, trading
Yeah.
cards took off, and people don't appreciate that. Well, there's going to be more Ferraris that are going to come, right? There's going to be more trading cards like Otani rookie cards that are not rookie, but Otani one of ones. There's going to be more that'll be printed, and what you have maybe used to be special, right? It might have really been a one of one if it was printed in 2006, but in today's world, your trading card, your one of one is one of 63 Otani one of ones that year, and that set alone, right? Your Ferrari is, one of so many that isn't that unique and that collectible at the end of the day that doesn't hold value. And that's why we're seeing the markets come back down because liquidity is getting a little bit tighter and people are appreciating that they're not that scarce. So you look at Bitcoin and you go, there's 53 million millionaires. Or something of that sort. There's 21 million Bitcoin. Not every millionaire is going to get half of a Bitcoin. Is that scarce, right? That feels scarce to me. And that costs $50,000 to get your share of what a current millionaire in fiat money could afford one day. It's a lesson in scarcity. That's all it is.
You
Totally.
know, I love everything that you're saying there, and I do want to dive in to what you're working on with the trading cards, with some of the art collectibles that you have in your background in collectibles, and how you're pivoting that to Bitcoin and really bringing what I view as the culture of art and expression of even the canvas behind you into the Bitcoin space. So do you want to just give us like a background in what the trading cards are, what the game is, and then also a little bit into KB and the marketplace that you're building out?
Absolutely. So we'll start with the trading cards, and I'll just I'll set some down next to me. I've got some next to me as well. Let me change my setup here. So no, you can't see my face. That's okay. You guys don't need to see my face too much. But what these trading cards are is basically, and it says on the front, art education fun, right? In Bitcoin, I love Bitcoin culture. It's what I'm ingrained in. I'm not a money tech person. I am a people person. I'm a culture person, and I'm supporting that renaissance, with the financial renaissance that's happening, right? And what I see is a need to reach people where they're at. Normies, as we say, they're not in your echo chambers on the podcast, on Noster, on, that it's great to engage on those platforms, right? But if you want to reach, the 7.5 billion people that don't own Bitcoin, you got to go to places where they're at. And so collectibles to me is the opportunity to breach that. Bitcoin trading cards is a way to learn about Bitcoin in a very fun and familiar way, right? With artwork on the front of it, and I'll show, this is a Bitcoin versus crypto card. So it's, you got Satoshi attacking, that's ETH down there. We've got our boomers in Bitcoin cards, so that, you've got Lawrence Lepard and Bob Burnett, and you got, a lot of the favorite Ugly Old Goat. We've got, this is a pretty special card. This is a Series 1 lost card, and it's hard to see, but you got Hal Finney, and you got Max, maybe Max is in there somewhere, but this is, kind of the Charizard, I would say, of ours Bitcoin trading cards, and it's this Series 1 Satoshi photo. But to the art point, this is from what we call the Halving Edition Whale Pack. It was made specifically for the halving. And this is an artwork called Penny Orange, right? It's made by British artist Rebel Money, and it's absolutely beautiful, right? So it's a physical painting or a physical creation artwork. And what Bitcoin trading cards is able to do is disseminate this knowledge, this beauty, this culture, get it into the hands of people that I don't have a print. I don't have, the original, but I have his trading card, right? And I get to appreciate a little bit of that at that same time. On the backs of these is written education, right? So for any given topic, it's not just Satoshi, it's not just Bitcoin focused. We're really targeting, Bitcoin adjacent topics, right? So there's a tyranny category, there's a freedom category, there's your resources that help you learn from the books, or well, there's an education category, so that's got your books. But for me, I have such a hard time orange pilling people just from the standpoint of you can make money off of it, you can impact, it's for the better of the society, right? And that ties back to my point of, for people to do something in Bitcoin, right? This is doing something in Bitcoin, even though it's not traditionally, like, I'm not building tech infrastructure, and I'm not putting, Bitcoin on MicroStrategy's or MetaPlanet's balance sheet, right? But I'm going on to Whatnot, and I'm going on to other platforms where, from youth to just adults, normies who collect these types of things, they're curious. They go, oh, a new project. Like, let me learn about this. Let me engage. Let me be part of their community. And so Bitcoin trading cards just came out with Series 3. It was last week. I'll give a shout, of course, btc-tc.com. Total transparency. So I've been collecting trading cards for 20 years. If I was to design a trading card project, this is not my business, right? I own a Bitcoin or a business adjacent to this that supports the ecosystem. But if I was to build a project in trading cards, it would be 99% identical to this one, right? The founder, Aladdin, has just done an incredible job of bringing, true quality in the product and the experience to the community. So Coil Breaks, or KB, and we'll see how long that name sticks around. We're going through a rebrand, so we'll see. We're going to see everybody at the Bitcoin conference. Going to try to get a booth there across from the Bitcoin trading cards table, so we can just be engaging, with our community. For me, is the opportunity to onboard, we're going to need to onboard billions of Bitcoiners, mint and onboard billions of Bitcoiners over the next couple of decades. And for me, there's a current marketing focus towards aging financial individuals, right? You've a traditional finance, marketing angle, and you have your personal finance marketing angle, like Fold and BlackRock being, traditional finance, and for me, that doesn't do it, right? As a 20s, person that's soft skill, just loves community, loves people, I don't really engage in this kind of static environment. I need something a little more dynamic and fluid. And so it ties back to my desire to be a kindergarten teacher, right? The opportunity to educate people in ways that are, fun and familiar. I play at the intersection of entertainment and effective education, right? So you're going to watch my live stream. You're going to have a ton of fun. You're going to be smiling. You're going to be learning, and it's going to be sticky. You're going to want to come back, and you're going to want to, learn about Bitcoin on your own time, so that you can add to the conversation. You can hit up the chat, and you can participate with our community. My version right now, which is just the streams where I take Bitcoin trading cards product that's sealed, And I basically allow collectors, I provide a service where I allow collectors to chase after specific cards that they're after. That's V1, right? Soon comes the media and marketplace for Bitcoin trading cards. And, that's something that I've been passionate about building kind of since early days, and not just Bitcoin trading cards, but I'm a marketplace person. I like garage sales to Goodwill to, Facebook Marketplace, Poshmark, eBay, Sotheby's, all across the map. Marketplaces drive, value, both creation and capture. And so when I look at the opportunity to onboard the masses, it's going to come through developing, I don't want to give too much insight away, but developing the next generation marketplace that, you're really going to create some stickiness in that experience.
Medium of exchange is sponsored by Purist Payments. Let's face it, for now, businesses still need to accept fiat and credit cards. Purist Payments helps with all your credit card processing needs using a consultative approach. Think of Purist like a performance coach, helping take your business to the next level when it comes to accepting all forms of money. For more information about Purist Payments, visit polarispayments.com. That's POLARISPAYMENTS.com. Now let's get back to the show.
That's all sweet, and shout out to Aladdin, those cards that you showed. That art was beautiful, and I think that's another thing that a lot of Bitcoiners are realizing is the craftsmanship that's coming back because of this low time preference approach that people are taking to whether it's their business, art, culture, etc. Is, I mean, that it clearly stands apart from just another Pokemon card that you can get in the checkout line at Target.
Let me see. I put my scissors away, but I said I was going to open one on camera so you guys could experience like the excitement. Of course, this series came out, and the cards are just next gen from what we experienced with Series 2. Series 2 came out, and this is our flagship product. Before I take a really hard time opening this, Orange Pill in a Pack is what this product is called. This set. And it comes in the name, right? We're trying to orange pill you through packs of trading cards, right? Name of the game. And end of day, we're learning how to create, the best trading cards in the world, right? From protecting collector value by maintaining scarcity to the collector experience through transparency, also down to, right, the education that comes inside of it. But what I was going to say is these packs, they're beautiful, but they came out a little hard to open. So just bear with me just a second. So here's your Nico and Opti Simply Bitcoin card. You got your base, right? And so it's going to teach you about Simply Bitcoin. You've got Bob Marley, that's part of the Freedom Fighters category. Nelson Mandela, also part of the Freedom Fighters category. We added parallels to this. So this is the simplest Bitcoin book written by Kisa. This is the orange parallel. On the back, there's total transparency. It says, I know it's going to be tough to see and I'm covering it up, but limited edition to 210. So you know exactly how much, how many exist. This is going to be, let's see, this isn't the Canadian, the Papier mark. So I think this is a German mark. I actually first time learning about it. The currency in use during a chaotic period of hyperinflation in Germany. So on the back is a quote for every card. Oh, this is going to be the WEF, the WEF, the World Economic Forum. So we try not to scare people, but we try to make them feel something, right? And these cards definitely make you do that. Here's going to be your Noster or Damus Noster, your peacock. You've got private key versus public key, right? And if you can envision where this art goes, right? This turns into comic books. It turns into, short stories on Netflix. It turns into Pokemon and Red Bull at large. There's, I think, Damus. Yep. And then you're looking at, there's an ultra rare. So that's Bitco's artwork. And it's proof of work. And of course, teaches you about it on the back. There's this serialized out of 500. So these cards just, they're beautiful, they're colorful, they're fun, they're engaging. They feel very familiar for people that are used to trading cards. They have a secondary market that you can engage in, right? So what can you do in Bitcoin? Well, this is it. You're collecting trading cards and you're playing with them, and that counts to me. So
Because
Yeah,
like
those are
my
sweet.
kids, they were so obsessed with Pokemon, and now they're super into Magic, and they love like, you know, like reading and thinking and trading and deciding how they're going to stack them inside their, you know, binders and like this is like what they do as soon as they get home from school. They're like cards. So yeah, this is, I mean, to your point of like next generation, you know, you're basically a kindergarten teacher, like
yeah,
like you're doing it, right?
At scale.
feels like
There you
it.
go.
I'm not in the classroom, but the classrooms come to me.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I 100% got to get some of these cards for my kids.
No, I got you. Well, there's the non-collectible version, and these I'll make sure get in your hands, but these are for the masses. We made these because, collectible ones, I don't want to give them away because they're so collect. What if there's a one of one?
For
So
sure.
we made these that, and I'll just really quickly show. These you can hand to your neighbors, you can hand to your friends and family. You don't have to pitch them on Bitcoin. It
Mm.
pitches them on Bitcoin. So every pack contains a why Bitcoin card with a matrix
Oh,
on the
cool.
back about, all the different
Yeah.
criteria and a resources, right? So,
Mhm.
here's your resources to buy and read and learn. And every pack has that, and then it comes into the cards, right? So to the average
Can
person,
you?
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, can you show that matrix again? Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
how Bitcoin stacks up against other types of currencies, or what is that?
Yeah, so I believe there's gold, there's crypto, and these are across the top. There's the US
Yeah,
dollar.
cool, cool.
Imagine
Yeah.
all green is going to be Bitcoin. But
Yeah.
I'll just quickly list the properties of sound money: truly scarce, portable, durable, divisible, fungible, secure, neutral, easily verifiable supply, easy to transact, non-consumable, decentralized, trustless, immutable/incorruptible, disinflationary over deflationary, provides settlement, finality, and peer-to-peer. Those are the criteria. So now you got a lesson.
Amazing.
You got a lesson in sound.
Yes.
Yeah,
All right. Well, Kyle,
that's
we'll
awesome.
connect on how I can get some of those. I know you got to run. I don't want to be sensitive to your time, but thank you for joining us.
Yeah, both of you. It's been fantastic. I wish you the best with the pod, and I know you guys are going to go out and build something great that'll share a lot of education to a lot of people. So appreciate the
Thanks,
work
man.
that you do to support the community.
Thank you for all that you do. Like truly, like it's really amazing and so special everything that you're doing throughout the ages, right? Like with the cards, and then starting Bitcoin Bruins.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't even talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what's it? Give me the 30 seconds pitch on
Yeah.
that, just real quick.
Bitcoin Bruins, I founded that to basically be a place for creating dialogue on campus, right? So I didn't create it as its own club. It's a community within the Entrepreneur Association. All we try to do is say, hey, we're available. Like, there's people on this campus that know how to talk about Bitcoin. They have networks in Bitcoin. If you want to learn about it, we're here to do so. And this is I do want to talk about this, which is May 23rd. I'm hosting, or we're hosting, the title still to be determined. But I basically took the Unchained Blockchain Business Forum, was supposed to be the week of the fires, right? So it was a blockchain forum, and there was a Bitcoin part because I was involved. As the student event leader, I didn't really feel comfortable totally changing the entire program, meaning making it Bitcoin only. But as my parting gift to the university and my parting gift to the students, we are hosting a Bitcoin only forum the Friday before the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas, where we'll be, bringing in top speakers, making sure the faculty that, the board, like I said, of Price Center for Entrepreneurship, the people that need to be in that room will be in that room to learn about Bitcoin, and hopefully inspire, a lot of change on that campus to support the next generation of, business leaders. So really excited for that.
That's incredible.
That sounds
Every
awesome.
every every student at UCLA, whether you want to start your own company or not, should be attending that.
Yep, we will
Like
make sure it's virtual.
no question.
I'm taking title recommendations. I need to figure out the name. So anybody have ideas will be, you know, put it in the chat. I don't know if there'll be comments. Yeah, got to figure that out. So anyways, thank
Awesome.
you guys.
Thank you.